I'm going to begin with covering the goals of our project and what we'll need from a high level to meet those goals. We'll then import our architectural scene into a new blueprint project and begin configuring UE and creating essential assets for the project. The purpose of this project is to demonstrate how to allow a user to teleport to preset locations around a map using a 3D UMG widget controlled by the motion controllers in VR. We will build this mechanic in two forms, top mode and preview mode. Top mode will consist of a top view of the scene with markers and places that we want to teleport to. A user simply points and clicks on the marker they want to travel to, and off they go. Preview mode will animate the camera to the new location's point of view. The users can then cycle through the spots and press on the Travel to Location button, and off they go. We will design these mechanics to be adaptable to which HMD hardware the end user is experiencing the project with. We'll also be keeping future updates in mind by thinking about how to develop the teleport system to scale with our needs. And speaking of scalability, an often requested mechanic that I receive from clients is the option to experience their scene in either VR or on PC. This could be because their end users may not like to use VR, and there could be a lot of reasons for this, including motion sickness. It could also be that their HMD isn't available for use at the time, but they still want to see the project. Either way, making this option easily addable later will save you a lot of future development time. Therefore, we will create this project to begin on PC and only transition into VR when the user presses the start button. However, we will not be covering how to build the PC pawn together. You will need to use what you will learn here in this course to build that yourself. There are a lot of ways to organize your data. I like to keep things separate and as organized as possible. We're going to create a game mode to store game-wide data that is accessible from any blueprint, a game state to check in on where we are on the map so we can teleport to where we are already standing, a player controller to assist us when manipulating our multiple pawn types via user input, the player pawns themselves, a starting pawn that starts the game, a VR pawn to be used with an HMD and motion controllers, and while we're not developing anything in it yet, we're going to create a PC pawn for future updates. We will also create a blueprint interface to be the primary system for handling communication between our blueprints. I want to quickly detail out what the flow of the project is so you have an end goal in mind while developing. After a user opens the game, they're presented with a start menu on their monitor with a single button to begin. When that button is pressed by the mouse, the HMD will become enabled and the game will begin. The starting pawn will be destroyed and the VR pawn will be spawned and possessed.
The VR player can now spawn the 3D map in front of them by pressing and holding the trigger with both hands. As they hold the trigger, they control the location of the map in world space. The closer their hands are to each other, the further away the map will be from them. When they let go of a trigger, the map will stay in place, and the user can point to the location or button in which they would like to travel to or interact with and press the trigger to interact.
Ready? Open Epic Games Launcher, go to the Library tab, and start a new project. I will be using Unreal 4.22.3. We will start with a blank blueprint project. I'm using a PC and like to map each of my projects to their own unique drive to keep them organized and the file names as short as possible. To do this on PC, create a new folder that you want to map. I will name mine 3D Map Nav, right-click on it and select Properties. Switch to the Sharing tab and select Advanced Sharing. Check Share this folder, and be sure to adjust your permissions to allow full control of that drive. Go to your shared folders on your network. My computer is named Rogue-PC, so I will type //Rogue-PC in the address bar. Right-click on the 3D Map Nav folder and select Map Network Drive. I'm choosing K, but you can select any unused drive letter and click Finish. Now the K drive is mapped to the 3D Map Nav folder, and we can now use that folder path inside of Unreal Engine. Let's put K:/ in the folder path and name our project Studio Showcase and create the project. While that project is being created, let me show you where to find the assets that we will be using in our project. We are using a free Epic Games project named Virtual Studio. That can be found in the Learn tab inside of the Epic Games launcher. I encourage you to download it so you can follow along, but feel free to use what we create in your own project. Okay, Studio Showcase is created. The first thing we will do is migrate the assets over that we will use from Epic Games Virtual Studio project. So let's close our project and open the Virtual Studio project. If you have trouble opening the project, it's no problem. It contains a plugin to handle the original purpose of the project, but we won't need it for what we want to do with it. Open up the notepad and drag the .uproject file into it. Set the enabled value to false under the Media Framework Utilities plugin and save that. Now the project should open much faster. There we go. We are using the Virtual Studio project not for what it was originally built for, but because it's a beautiful architectural interior scene and is perfect to show off in VR. The thing is, there's a lot in here that we don't need. To migrate what we need, we will go to the Maps folder and right-click on the Trackerless Studio map. Select Asset Actions and press Migrate. This will give us all the assets that are referenced by this map. Anything else will be left behind. Select OK and navigate to your Studio Showcase's content folder. It's going to warn us that not all the files copied successfully, but that's okay. I do need to point out though, that when working with external media files as we are here, they will not be migrated with the rest of the assets, even though they're being used in the scene. So we need to manually copy and paste them into our project. Let's test this by opening our Studio Showcase project and opening the newly migrated Trackerless Studio map. You will see that everything is here, but the screen is white. The reference to the external MP4 file is gone. To get that movie file, we will go back to the Virtual Studio project, open the content folder, and we will find a movies folder. We don't need both movies that are provided, so let's just copy the MP4 file starting with Unreal Engine and paste it into the new movies folder within our content folder. Remember, all external media files must be placed inside this folder to be used inside of Unreal Engine. Now, if we restart our project, you can see that the video file is now referenced and is playing on our screen. Now everything we needed from Virtual Studio is in, and we can create our own assets. Let's go back to the content folder and create a new folder for all our assets to be placed in, named NavVR. Within NavVR, let's create a couple folders. We want to create a gameplay folder, player folder, and an interface folder. In our gameplay folder, let's create a new blueprint class of type game mode base and name it GM Studio Showcase. Let's also create our game state, which can be found under all classes and search for game state. Select game state base and name it GS underscore Studio Showcase. Next, we want to create a new player controller blueprint and name it PC underscore Studio Showcase. And let's save all. In the player folder, let's create the pawns we need starting with the parent pawn. This is going to be named BPP for parent underscore pawn, indicating that this is a parent blueprint of type pawn. From BP underscore pawn, we will create a couple of child blueprint classes. Right-click on BPP underscore pawn and select Create Child Blueprint Class and name it BPC for child underscore VR pawn. Press Ctrl W to make a duplicate of BPC underscore VR pawn and name it BPC underscore starter pawn. And lastly, let's make another duplicate of BPC underscore VR pawn and name it BPC underscore PC pawn for that future update. We won't develop the PC pawn in this course, but it will be ready to be worked on when we need to. If you're familiar with working with hierarchical classes in either C++ or in Blueprint, you'll know that anything added to BPP pawn will be inherited by the 3 child pawns we've created. So if there's a variable or a function or event in the parent, the child will have it as well, but can handle it in its own unique way. So let's say I have a function in BPP pawn that spawns the map. This will be used in both PC pawn and VR pawn, but the way it gets there will be different. This will become clearer as we continue. Go to the interface folder and right-click, go to Blueprints, and select Blueprint Interface. Let's name it BPI underscore Studio Showcase and save all. We now have an overview of the project goals and have begun development with a blank project added provided assets, and created some foundational blueprints. Next, we begin to develop the starter pawn and starting UI that allows us to wait before entering VR and to expand our project to support a desktop experience in the future.